Tarps, it's a possibility if you want to basically prevent any sort of additional rain from getting into your compost. If you've got enough moisture there, obviously if you have a good rain, then you're going to have probably too much moisture. So as long as you put the tarp on there and then you take it off right after the rain, then you should have no problem, and that will help to prevent too much moisture from entering the compost. If you want to do something that's, really organic, you're going to want to use all materials that are certified organic. So if anything that you're adding, whether it's fruit or vegetable, or whether it's grass clippings, or whether it's manure, it's got to all be certified as organic if you want to end up with an organic type compost. And by the way, you don't have to add any sort of additional chemicals to the composting process. It's a natural process of decomposition, and so it just happens on its own. We usually recommend that you don't add any sort of meats or dairies to your home composting pile, but there are commercial facilities that accept these kinds of products. And the reason for it is because they're usually not as concerned about the pests or the smells getting into their facility. And also, since it's a commercial facility, they're really taking good care to monitor the moisture and the temperature so that everything gets degraded the way it should. So we don't normally recommend using any sort of a coated paper product, like a wax coated paper product, or any of the compostable plastics, because they generally require additional time to break down and decompose. And so those are things that we usually like to leave for the commercial facilities, once again, that are really monitoring the temperature and the turning process and everything that's involved in that. Remember, you can compost any sort of paper products. So these egg cartons are made of paper, anything that's cardboard, any sort of computer paper. We try not to use anything that's got any sort of color inks related to them, but otherwise, if you shred it up, you can definitely use it in your compost pile. With compost tea, that's something that you can use to actually make a nutrient solution from the compost that you've produced. So essentially what you do is you take the compost and you add it to a burlap sack or a pillowcase, and then you can put it in a 5-gallon bucket that's got water in it. And just like tea, you're going to basically allow it to steep for a day or two, and you'll notice that the water's got a nice brown color to it, and that's essentially all the nutrients that have come out of that compost. And so you can use that as a nutrient solution in your gardens to provide fertilizer to your plants, and you can use it probably over once a week, something like that. And you can actually reuse the compost and make more tea from that same compost. And then once you notice that you're not getting that brown color anymore, then you're not going to be able to make any more tea from that compost. But the compost is still useful. You can still apply it to the garden. It's still going to add a lot of good organic matter that's going to help the garden out. Receipt paper actually has a compound known as BPA, and so there's been a lot of talk about BPA. Basically, we don't recommend including it in your compost pile, and it's actually not even recommended to be added to your recycling bin. So those are the recommendations as far as composting is concerned. So as far as compost starter is concerned, I really don't recommend using any sort of compost starter because, as we've said before, it's really a natural process. And the microbes that you need are already there. They're on all of the food material, all of the waste material that you've got. And when you put that all together, as long as you've got a good environment for them, they're going to grow and proliferate, and you're really not going to need any of that starter material.